What is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Powerline Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Ryan Lucas. All right, it has been brought to my attention. Well, I've known this for a while. I know that there's way more listeners out there than there is followers/subscribers. So I'm going to ask you guys to make sure that you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this on, because it's not me that cares so much. It's the people that you got to report the information to, or the algorithm that really cares about those stupid numbers like followers and subscribers, right? So just do me a favor, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. I'll quit pestering you about it. All right, let's dive into this week's episode of Powerline Podcast. Enjoy. Dylon, Mark, had you both on the show in the past. It's a pleasure to have you here in the studio in Houston. Come a long way since the first time we recorded episodes together. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, heck yeah.
What was that, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it feels like that, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
It's damn near pre-pandemic if it wasn't like right at the beginning, right?
I think it was pre-pandemic. It was right as we were going virtual for podcast. I mean, podcasts took off then.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah,
it was fun times. Lots changed since then.
And this is, I've been talking a lot lately about social media and just the power of social media. And I know like some people kind of roll their eyes when they hear me talk about it, but honestly, I was just telling the people in here today, if I hadn't made a decision to put content out on the internet, I would never be here where I am today. I never would have met someone like yourselves. Like it's amazing what you can do with the power of the internet. Like we met on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So just cold reached out. You didn't even have like that you worked for working athlete in your title on LinkedIn.
No.
And you're just like, I'm like hydration expert or something like that. Instead, I was like, okay, let's check this out.
Yeah. No. And that's, I mean, really evolving to how we're evolving now is the digital platform is, because I'm only one person, Mark's only one person. And we've kind of been known for being the educators on hydration and dehydration and heat illness, and we couldn't do it for all the companies that were requesting it. So we had to look digital, and that's something that we're actively doing right now.
Good.
Which is, it has to be done in today's world.
100%.
So, and this platform's helped.
Heck yeah. So I want to do, I know we've done intros in the past, but we've got a lot of different listeners and new listeners and things like that. So I'll ask you a few kind of questions that kind of introduce yourselves. Mm-hmm. So Mark, what do I need to know about your past that would help me understand who you are today?
Well, I think it really revolves around two things. I was a competitive athlete in high school, college, and post-college, and then started the training of collegiate athletes professionally, which ended up being 40 years. And along with that, I was educated in nutrition. The two kind of go hand in hand, but I was always fascinated by it. And so I guess if to know me is to know that in terms of human performance, my background is in preparation to win, if you will. Whether that's getting stronger, faster, more flexible, gaining weight, losing weight, getting more explosive, all those things fall into that bailiwick. And like I said, then nutrition supports that. Mm. So that's kind of been my life.
I love this subject because I think that it's very polarizing. It's probably very, very polarizing no matter what, but polarizing in our industry. Guys that think similarly to you in like supporting their nutrition and thinking healthy, and then the complete polar opposite of the guys that just eat from gas stations and don't care about anything like health and fitness and their own mortality. So I love having people like yourselves on here. Similar question for you, Dylon. What do I need to know about your past that help explain
so I've mentioned this many times, but I grew up, my dad's a Marine, so a very strict household, but, learned the value of the dollar early and what hard work meant. In today's world, that's kind of tough to come by at times. But when he got out of the Marine Corps after Desert Storm in 92, 93-ish, he started a landscaping business. And the cheapest labor was me and my brother. So we're in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 120 degrees at times, not including radiant heat or anything else. And we're out there throwing tons and tons of gravel, excuse me, and laying thousands of yards of sod, and it's like, this is tough work. Excuse me. And it's one of those things where I learned that piece, and then I was in the athletic world, and I learned performance, and I learned how they relate as far as what you put in is what you get out. So it was nice to get a feel for that, because what I do now, excuse me, I'm speaking about this all the time. It's talking to people about how what you put in affects your performance, but your safety. So I got to take a drink. Sorry.
Yeah, do it up. Mark, what's your mission?
Well, it's nice to get older in some respects, and I guess for the listener, I'll be 65 and start taking Medicare here in a couple of weeks. And so it's, I've kind of slayed all my dragons, and I really just enjoy helping people live a more productive, healthier, safe life. So my mission is to get people to their retirement in a place physically where they can enjoy it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people can work and get to the finish line, but there's nothing in the tank when they now have a little bit of time. Yeah. So I guess that to answer that question, that's really my mission. Just go out there, be honest with people. I'm not here to beat up on anybody's companies. I hope they all do well, so that's kind of the deal.
How did Wilderness Athlete start? How did you come up with the idea of starting Wilderness?
Well, actually, this would go back now to 1987. I'm an avid hunter. I grew up in northern Minnesota, when if you don't hunt or fish, you don't have a life. And I came to New Mexico and had never hunted elk before, drew a tag, bow hunting, went up into the mountains, probably 9,000 feet, and chased elk around. And I'd never done, now everything's on our back now. This is back before I had two nickels to rub together. And so you're eating top ramen and running around the woods with a pack on, and bulls were screaming. And I was lucky, and I mean that, to harvest a nice 6-point my first year, and then packing it out took 27 miles worth of trips to get it out. And I thought to myself, coming out of the athletic world, that's the toughest thing I've ever done in my life, physically. And so I said, if there's anybody that's an athlete, it's these cats. Sheep hunters are even another level. But so that's where the name Wilderness Athlete came from. And with my background in nutrition, I'm not an expert. I did my graduate work, but all that really did is it exposed me to the top nutritionists in the area of human performance. They became my friends for whatever reason. And I was the right person to connect nutrition to hardcore outdoors adventures. I just happened to be the guy that had those both in my background. So that started Wilderness Athlete, and it's been quite an adventure now. That's been 20 years ago.
I just, I got back from a trip to Mount Everest Base Camp in October. And so I can relate with that. That's like my first experience with real elevation. And man, elevation is no joke. No joke. And you talk about like chasing bulls around the mountains, at whatever, 10,000 feet even. Yeah. It's like, that's serious itself. How fast, like I was good the whole time, the whole trek. I had a really crappy sleep like the last night at like 18,000 feet. Really bad sleep. It was freezing cold. Like I had to sleep basically outside, minus 15 Celsius. Like disgusting. Didn't sleep at all. So like that next morning, because I didn't sleep right, because I was like kind of exhausted from the last, 10 days, man, like the decline at elevation was insane. Like I was good to like, I'm dying over the course of like a few hours.
Right.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it took like getting to lower elevation to kind of like slowly get that back.
Yeah.
It's insane though.
Yeah. And that's why, again, to meet the people that I met that helped us start the company. And I say 20 years ago, I mean, 87 is obviously more than 20 years ago, but it stewed, in my head for a good bit of time before we actually launched the company. But the scientific end of what you're describing, that hypoxia and all the attendant consequences of that led to one of our products called Altitude Advantage, which just helps the body deal with oxygen deprivation. But science in general, people that want to take care of themselves, there's so much information out there on social media today. Who do you really trust? Because I can tell you, I look at a lot of it too, and some of it's legit and a lot of it's not. So to have a company you can go to and trust, hopefully we filled that gap, or there was no industry when we started. Several other companies have come on board, and I'm a capitalist, so bring it on, you know. And so it's been a lot of fun.
I do like the point though about like who you can trust, and typically you go to like, okay, who's been doing this the longest, because any kid right now is going to jump on board with the Logan Pauls of the world, and let's go to Prime, let's go to like whatever, call out the name brand stuff, because they have big platforms to get their product out there. But you've been doing this for a long time. So I like that.
Yeah.
Like, that gives a little bit of comfort to people, like, hey, the science, you've been doing it a long time, you're still sticking it out. Like, I like that.
Well, and then ultimately it comes down to, if you put our product in your mouth and you don't have a positive experience, then don't buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confident.
True story.
That give it a shot, and if not, go somewhere, go someplace else.
Explain working athlete then.
Well, one of our customers from the Phoenix area was the head of safety for the second largest utility company in the Phoenix Valley. And he had used our product on several of his hunts, one being Africa, another one being up in the mountains of Canada or Alaska. And they were averaging 6 OSHA recordables every year. And his boss gave him what to be a pretty tough commandment. He said, I want that down to 0. And so Rick called me. His name is Rick. And Rick brought me in to speak to, I want to say this 7-8 years ago. There was like 200 linemen in the room for their morning meeting. And I came in and just gave a off-the-cuff 15 minutes. This is what we have. This is what the problem is. This is what you're not thinking of. And my concern for them and my job is to get you guys home healthy. And just what I had expressed earlier. I mean, it doesn't do you guys any good to retire with all your toys and have no health. So our product was designed really like a force multiplier. It's bigger than hydration. You guys have some nutritional gaps in your life. And so that company almost immediately went to 0 recordables for like 4 years. And I kept going back and doing trainings. And that spawned a whole new, because we're looking at wilderness athlete. Now, I mean, there's not that many hunters that care about their health. Okay. I mean, let's just be honest. And most of them are west of the Mississippi. When it comes to the industrial world of people who really need to know and have our products in their body, that's a monster industry. Yeah. And so that spawned working athlete. And I haven't been involved in wilderness athlete really since that day. Amazing. Because of the growth in working athlete. Yeah. And it's and I come out of the work background like Dylon. I mean, I grew up farming, baling hay, pouring concrete, climbing poles. And so I have a great appreciation for people that do that for a living, because they're the kind of people that nobody knows. And coming out of the athletic world, I'm used to an awful lot of people who everybody knows. And I prefer to be with the people that nobody knows.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Dylon, why is craft labor important?
Well, I mean, essentially, as cliche as it is, it's the backbone of this country. Yeah. That could be another 2-hour conversation talking about the university world and all this, these educations that people are paying for that there's no work for. And at the end of the day, the tradesmen are what are really running this economy globally. I mean, without it, we don't have things like energy. We don't have the fuels that we need to perform all of these other jobs, daily tasks. So, I mean, craft work, it's something that's sentimental to me, coming from that in my family specifically, but then just seeing the people that are involved with it. I mean, there's a lot of great people out there that are part of this middle group of society, majority of them middle group of society, that just great people. I mean, that have good hearts and are doing things most of the time for the right reasons. And it's been fun to make an impact with that. And, at the end of the day, that blue collar society is, I mean, that's what America is.
Yeah. So the audience primarily for this podcast is that blue collar industry, right? Whether it's power utility or whatever now. From coming on board to Quanta, there's a lot of new listeners from other industries, which is great as well.
Yeah.
What I really wanted to accomplish with this is education, because you guys are such good educators on the things that you do. Like, you don't just sell products like hydration products or supplements or whatever. You're really all about educating, and I love that. So I want to, my end goal would be to get this audience here thinking differently about the stuff they do daily, thinking differently or about how important hydration, heat illness is, that sort of stuff. So I want to talk about things like, Dylon, what does fit for duty mean?
Yeah, that term gets thrown around. The past 5 years I've done this, it's quite frankly, I hear a lot of safety people talking about being fit for duty. And then you challenge them about, really, how is your workforce fit for duty? Can you explain that to me?
I challenge that safety guy, whether he's fit for duty.
Yeah,
he's fit for duty,
that's a different story. Yeah. Them specifically,
guys,
right? Yeah, challenge them right away. But you hear that thrown around, and then you also hear, how many mental illness and health cases we have out here, how many serious injuries we have all the time, or even minor injuries. It's like, that looks great on LinkedIn to say you're fit for duty, but what are you doing daily to make sure your workforce is actually mentally and physically at the capacity to perform work safely, to get home to their family? And you're right. I mean, working athletes, the only one that's doing this. We're not a throw on the table product company. If we wanted to be, we easily could. But I mean, we're a family-owned small business that we believe we're doing things the right way and holding the integrity at a higher standard. And we also believe that some companies need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, are we really making our crews fit for duty? Because at the end of the day, in these trades, if you're performing work at a capacity that you're not mentally there, you're going to get hurt. It's a ticking time bomb. Now, are you going to get hurt and be able to come back to work next week? Most of the time, yes. But there's a small percentage out there that are not. And we're passionate about this from a training aspect because people don't know what they don't know. And I've been able to go in and train a room full of 250 tradesmen, whether it's in the utility or construction world or mining, whatever it may be. And everybody will warn you, hey, it's a tough crowd, careful out there, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay. Then you finish up, and it's like these people are all eyes and ears. And it's something where you have to communicate the message in a way that they can hear it, and you have to make it consumable. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's I like to use the terminology, like my daughter's starting to talk now. And, the why question is happening more and more. Or, the question it's going to happen a lot more soon, but it's one of those, right? It's one of those where it's like, you know what? She doesn't really know why. And I like to think a lot of the times when you look at the trades, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And if they want to know why, because if they don't know why, there's not going to be follow through.
Right.
And if you want something actionable as it relates to what we discuss, it has to be further than what the low standard has been for 50 years. Because what working athlete pays attention to, yes, we're hydration, dehydration, heat illness. But like when I go in and talk to a safety director and we say, hey, how many heat-related illnesses did you have last year? And they say, oh, we only had one. It's like, no, you didn't. Maybe you had one recordable, but you probably had numerous other injuries or close to fatality, serious injuries that were caused by early onset stages of dehydration. And what we mean by that is cognitive decline. Your brain's made up of 80% water, and if it's not saturated or if it's not being fueled properly, how can you expect your workforce to be performing at the capacity that they should be? So in the world of athletics, I mean, Mark and I talk about it all the time, is building in margin. Building in margin because everybody's human, or the capacity model, right? We're following closely with the capacity model. It's the same thing, is we can build in margin or capacity because people are going to make mistakes. What can we do to give them an environment to make sure that they're still coming back tomorrow? To where maybe it's an injury, but it's not a serious injury or fatality. And as it relates to our training and hydration, I mean, this is a root cause that even OSHA's looking at more and more. They're saying, okay, yeah, somebody got hurt, but did they have 6 beers last night and 2 Monster energy drinks and start to perform work? Maybe that's why they fell and broke their wrist. Rather than, oh, it's a fall, chalk it up. It wasn't a heat-related illness though. So now they're looking at root causes, and people are starting to open their ears to that a little bit more, which is great, as it should be.
What does, so if you had to define, and tell somebody, this is what fit for duty actually looks like, what does that look like to you? What do you recommend? Start right at the beginning then. This is how you should be showing up. At what state do you have your body or something? You should be fully hydrated. You should be what does fit for duty mean then?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's, it's kind of vague, and it's obviously hard to quantify.
Sure.
But it really comes down to how good do you feel?
Yeah.
And let me give you, if I could, a little anecdote, and I'll poke fun at myself here. So I go in a couple weeks ago to give blood. I every twice a year, I have a blood draw to check for my PSA levels for prostate cancer, which is a problem for men. So I'm going on a fast the night before, and I go in to get blood drawn. And the lady can't find, I mean, I've never had a problem finding a vein.
Yeah. And
the lady said, did you have water? After she had missed me 3 or 4 times, and I'm like a pincushion. And I said, no, the nurse told me to fast, and maybe if I was thirsty to suck on some ice cubes or whatever. So no, I didn't drink water. Well, that's why, because what happens is when your blood loses the fluid in it, i.e. you're dehydrated, you can actually hit the vein, but it collapses. Now you think I should know that? And I'm not going to beat myself up because the nurse told me not to drink water. But the doctor then, or the phlebotomist said, no, you need to drink water. So why do I say that? Because fit for duty, if I could wave my magic wand and get guys to do 2 things, drink a big glass of water before bed and drink a glass of water when you wake up, you automatically put yourself 50% up in your fit for duty by drinking that fluid to keep your blood viscous and moving freely with the oxygen, the platelets, the amino acids, and everything that your body needs to function is contingent on your blood. I can show you literature dating back 4,000 years that talks about your life is in the blood. It's in the, now, how did they know that 4,000 years ago? We don't seem to know it today.
Yeah. Facts.
So I learned, and I was kind of embarrassed by it, that someone like me should know better, but I won't listen to a nurse again in those regards.
Yeah. That's exactly what I wanted to get out of you is like, I don't think that anybody understands these simple things that you can do to like set your day up the next day better. Because like you said, chances are somebody's, eating poorly the day before, or what do you do in the evening? You blow off some steam, you go to the restaurant, go to the bar, like whatever it is, you're doing the opposite. It's like showing up the next day, really not setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. And we're the first ones to tell you, like, go out and have your cocktails, have your cheeseburgers, do whatever you're going to do. Just make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable, because everything that you do is going to impact you tomorrow at the end of the day. We all know that. But to relate to your question about, in our eyes, what could make you fit for duty, there's 3 simple things you could do from a hydration standpoint. And the reason why I bring this up is because there was a, and I'll have to find the exact source, but one of our partners that does some of our soft tissue injury prevention collaboration shared with me a study from the Navy SEALs that on a good day, and this is completely relatable to the trade, on a good day, you can identify about 40 to 50% of the risks in your environment. So when you show up to a job and you're doing a risk hazard analysis and you're talking over what you're going to do for the day, whatever, it's done on every job, right? On a good day, you can only identify about 40 to 50%. And then, as we mentioned, 75% of your brain is water.
Wow. And
on average, about 80% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. So we're all smart enough to connect the dots here. If we have a chronically dehydrated workforce, they're probably not identifying all of the risks daily, which when you're working around energy or you're working around serious hazardous workplaces, you want to be able to identify as many risks as possible.
This is wild because, so for anyone listening, I'll just describe the slide that's up there. It's a slide that is the percentage of water in the human body. And we've kind of all heard, your body is 80% water or 90, whatever it is, right? But when you break it down by organ, that's wild.
It's pretty wild. One of the one that sticks out to me the most, just coming from the world of athletics and Coach coming from the world of athletics, I didn't realize this either, but that same source told me that about 40% of 40% of incidents for most blue collar companies consist of soft tissue injuries. So 40%, that's the largest portion from what my understanding is. So your muscles are 80% water, dang near. In the world of athletics, if somebody came in was injury prone with muscle issues, the very first thing that was addressed was hydration and electrolyte support.
That's wild.
And diet.
Because you'd think right away is do you stretch? Are you mobile?
That's the first thing nowadays, right? Yeah. Is what's your stretch and flex routine? Which they go hand in hand.
Sure.
You need that 100%. You need soft tissue injury prevention.
But it has to be pliable.
It has to be pliable. And I like to use the terminology. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I share this with a bunch of tradesmen all the time, and because it makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you take a dehydrated sponge, you're doing dishes old school style, no dishwashers, and you take a hydrated sponge, which one moves more freely?
Sure.
Which one is more prone to injury? Which one's going to allow your body to move or function in the proper patterns? The saturated sponges.
Just some of them, if they're dry, they're rock hard, and if you bent them, they would break.
They would break.
Yeah,
they would tear. Sense. They would break. Right, and that's the problem with whenever we come in and we talk about hydration. It's we didn't have heat-related illnesses last year. I said, but this is bigger. You're not understanding. This is foundational safety. It's performance, and your muscles, as we mentioned. When you have tons of soft tissue injuries, you need to address your hydration protocol first. And then you follow it up with the stretch and flex routines and corrective exercises, etc. But yeah, this is kind of like you said, this is something that when you see this slide, you're like, wow, okay, this is why people say we're walking water.
Well, and Dylon mentioned earlier his little daughter asking why. I think one of the things that we love to do that nobody else does, but I mean, it's right in our wheelhouse, is give them the why. For example, when I look out into the face of these guys, 100, 200, 300 at a time, I said, do you realize you guys are going to lose 2 to 3 pounds of water when you sleep tonight? Through urination, perspiration, respiration, your body is a burning metabolic machine. You are going to wake up dehydrated. Your blood is going to be thinner. Do you realize more heart attacks occur in the morning than in the evening? Why? Because it's thicker blood. It's got to be pumped by your heart through your capillary beds, through your vascular system. And when there's more work involved, that's a problem. So the educational piece is so much fun, because once you can get in between their ears and they know that I'm there for them. But guys, you got a part to play in this too. Now, I've been guilty, and this is where I've had to pull back. Not everybody wants to know what I know or Dylon knows.
Sure.
So how do we give them enough to make a demonstrable difference in their lives? And let's say the person that really doesn't want to hear it, but I do want to affect them. So give everybody enough to make a difference, and don't beat the horse to death.
Sure. Why not just drink water? Then, because I'd see that same person say, okay, fine, I'll just drink water. What do I need? Like, why do I need help?
Really good question. And for the most part, I let them know water is the answer.
Yep.
We're not. But your body, for example, do you know more people die every year in marathons from over drinking water? It's called hyponatremia. There's no electrolytes in it. And what happens as you continue to consume water every mile, because people that are scared when they run, they stop at every mile marker to drink water. Their brain starts to swell due to lack of connectivity, and they start swimming in it. And then they keep drinking water as they slowly lose consciousness, and then they die because the dilution of their blood is such that there's no electrolytes for their electrical system. So do you have to live on electrolytes? No, but you have to consume enough to keep your body functioning properly. I remember bailing hay as a kid. We just drank water, but by the end of the day, when you're grabbing twine, your hands will just clinch up and you have to pry your fingers open. Lack of electrolytes.
It makes 100% sense for like linemen. You should understand that if you're a lineman.
That's right.
That we use demineralized water, for insulator washing. Why? Because it doesn't conduct electricity.
Right.
So that makes 100%.
That makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that. Just letting them know the why, and then those are the kind of things they can remember. So again, I just think if I could get them to do those two things, end the day with water, start the day with water, and I could walk out the door feeling good about them grasping that.
Let's go into some more on heat illness and heat illness prevention.
Yeah, really, there's a new ASSP ANSI standard out right now. And from what we're hearing, OSHA's going to be, OSHA's already working on it. They've been working on it. We've known that. Everybody's known that. Whether or not they get it introduced over the next 12 to 24 months, we'll see. But in a perfect world, before I go back, in a perfect world, the most critical factors to avoid heat illness, let's just start with what you can do. Very simple. And when we present, this is literally our slide deck that we present. But
so 3 most critical factors to avoid heat illness and dehydration.
That's right. The 3 most important things you can do are pre, intra, and post hydration. Or before, during, and after. In a perfect world, you would have a cup of water next to your bed or wherever you're waking up. 10 to 24 ounces within the first hour. Just get it in your system. Plenty of benefits to it with the digestive system, to, kickstarting your brain. And in a perfect world, you would throw in some salt and electrolytes to get those flowing right away, because your body's a metabolic system and machine that's just burning all through the night. So you need to replace that. And then during work, we used what we call the Galpin equation, and we actually stole that from a Huberman podcast. But long story short, we don't want people to have to be busting out their calculators or anything, but it's basic math. It's take your body weight, divide that by 30. If I'm 210 pounds, divide by 30. I'm looking at around 7 ounces of water every 20 minutes of work. So in order to not get lost in the weeds, your average water bottle is about 16 ounces of water. So you're looking at about a bottle to a bottle and a half of water every hour during work. Sipping, though. That's why they're saying every 20 minutes ingest about 7 ounces, because sipping versus gulping is way better for saturation of the cells at the cellular level. And then post-hydration, in the world of athletics, you would weigh somebody butt naked at the beginning of practice, butt naked at the end of practice. Are we going to do that in the trades? No, thank God. But what we're going to do is educate them on why post-hydration is important. Because if you lose 2 pounds during practice, you would have to drink a water bottle per pound lost before you leave the training facility. And the reason is because they know how important water is to muscle maintenance, performance, recovery, and cognitive ability. So all of these topics have been discussed in the world of athletics and sports for years. It's just working athletes now bringing them into the trades. And that's why, we're so passionate about this stuff, because the industrial worker, blue collar worker, what they do on a daily basis is incredible. Day in, day out, it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's demanding. And demanding work requires demanding focus and attention to detail, because if not, things can get squirrely quick.
That's the crazy thing too, is like blue collar workers, you might look yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm not an athlete, like I'm overweight, but you're pushing your body every day as if you are an athlete, like at a high level, and they don't even realize it.
No.
Like you really don't.
No.
And that stuff, like you just had up there, like that's not happening.
No.
For the most part, the guys aren't drinking 7 ounces of water every 20 minutes or half an hour. Like it's just not happening. The guy will go up in the, in our trade, he'll go up in the bucket for like 3 hours, 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And, not even pack a water bottle with you because there's no place to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, sorry, Mark, the last thing I was going to say is just proximity of water sometimes. Yeah. If your brain has to go through the decision of I'm thirsty, but it's too far away, it's too late. Because your mind is automatically going to say, well, I've only got like an hour left at work.
It's 95% too late for most people all
Absolutely.
the time.
And when you let that actually, not to just reference every slide on here, but when you have that reference or that mindset of that water's a little too bit far away, I've got an hour left at work, I've done this task 1,000,000 times. I know I'm not right in the head right now, but it's a tough man industry. It's a tough guy industry. I'm going to get it done, right? That complacency is what can get you, seriously injured very fast. So we talk about overconfidence and human performance tactics. And when you have that ability to let your mind slip into the typical routine mindset, that's whenever things get really bad. A lot of times with storm response crews, their attention to detail.
Yeah. Because
their adrenaline's running, they're amped up, they're hyper focused on safety and their task at hand. It's the daily stuff that allows you to get in that complacency mode. So confidence is very key. But if you let overconfidence kick in and let complacency take over, or the decision to say, well, I've only got an hour left to work, I think I'm fine, it can get, you can get in trouble fast. So yeah, that's something that we touch on all the time. And the other thing as it relates to that is having a questioning attitude. What could go wrong, right? we are not here to rewrite a culture or move this ship in a completely different direction. That is not our goal. Our goal is to help give the proper information to maybe, just maybe, impact safety in a positive light, not just in heat-related illness, but cognitive decline injuries as well, soft tissue injuries, et cetera. So what could go wrong if I was out at the bar last night till 2 a.m. and had too much to drink, and I've got to be at the yard by 6 a.m., and so I better stop at Buc-ee's, since we're in Texas, and go get some Monster and go to work? Well, now you were already behind the 8 ball. Now you've thrown yourself even further behind, and you may get away with it 95% of the time. But this compounding effect over time on your body, it will affect you later on in life, for one. But the acute safety, like on the daily basis, you're working in a chronically dehydrated state, which is not going to allow you to make sound decisions or, as we mentioned, identify risks on the job site. So ask yourself what could go wrong. And then as a safety leadership perspective, I work with safety leaders all the time, and rolling around in your truck and your AC, rolling down a window saying, guys, make sure you stay hydrated out there, is not safety.
Yeah.
And having your checklist of JHAs or whatever you're doing, whoever the hydration monitor is for the day, that's not safety either. Mm-hmm. That task-oriented safety is just a thing of the past, and it's something that I'm seeing changed in a positive way. Relational safety, making people human and allowing for that relationship to ask the question, guys, what could go wrong? Like, hey, who was out late last night? Be honest. Let's have an environment where we can talk about these things. And if we need to take 30 minutes to recoup ourselves before we start working around live wire or things that can kill us, maybe we take 30 minutes to an hour to recoup. But that's a culture that has to start with leadership.
Well, one thing I've noticed too is that we need to do a better job of asking the worker what's realistic and what's not.
Sure.
Rather than just telling them what to do. I mean, if I was them, don't tell me my business. So tell us, guys. We'll give you some information that can save your life, and you tell us how we're going to implement it and get buy-in from those guys. With that slide up there, it reminds me, I have a questioning attitude. I heard this one time, that the beginning of wisdom starts with frequent and assiduous questioning. For by doubting, we are led to inquiry, and inquiry leads to the truth.
Curiosity.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, what's the truth? Mm-hmm. So how do we get there? You tell us what we don't know, and let's figure this thing out. We've got a great product, but if you can't get to it, or if you can't get to water, so I think it's a collaboration between safety people, us, and ultimately the end user has got to have a role to play.
See, sitting here listening to this, it sounds simple. Like, it sounds like it just needs a plan. Like, it just needs like a plan, and what's the hydration system like, mm-hmm. And it needs to be, like you said, thought about collectively, right? From the safety people to the end user, which is the lineman or whoever, the worker. Yeah. But it has to be thought about as more of a plan. Like, what's the entire plan for the day or for my life on how I'm going to stay hydrated? Because like I said, you get into these jobs, literally you get up there, you just start doing something a lot of the time, not realizing that this job's, you're going to get into it for 3 hours, and you're going to be stuck doing this thing and hyper focused on it, using all of your mental capacity and physical strength to get this task done in blazing heat, wearing sleeves and rubber gloves. And,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so what does a good plan look like then from you guys, like professionals on your end? What does a good plan look like? What's a good start? Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to give the information to the worker. And a lot of times that's not happening probably 90% of the time. Like we mentioned before, telling them, hey, make sure you drink water today. That's not getting them the information.
Yeah, because there's no why.
There's no why.
I'll drink when I'm thirsty.
That's right. We have to show them that the reason why you're getting that pounding headache, the reason why your heart feels like it's pounding out of its chest, or the reason why your extremities slow down, or you get into a brain fog, if they know why those things happen, the next time they start to creep up on them, they're gonna be like, oh, duh, like I need to pay attention to this stuff. But also there's personal accountability things that we need to talk about too. And that, I mean, I pulled up another slide here, but factors that contribute to poor thermoregulation, all that's saying is your body's trying to keep homeostasis right around 98.6 degrees. And your body, if it's taking on heat from outside environmental factors, or as you mentioned, heavy dark clothing, PPE type clothing, arc flash resistant, right? And then there's a ton of different other variables that are against you daily. But a lot of people don't really think of them. They just think of, well, it's going to be hot today and it's humid. So I need to just make sure I drink some water. But what we need to talk about are, let people know they can do their own research. There takes a lot of personal accountability here. How your prescription medications affect how you retain water, or are they dehydrating you? Your drug and alcohol use, right? Acclimatization or lack of experience working in a specific region on storm. This is a massive topic. And, we've actually developed training platform and resources for utilities that are bringing in contractual storm response crews, because that's whenever people get in a tough spot very quick, when they're coming into a region that they're not used to. And that's, unfortunately a couple of years ago, it happened to somebody in this industry with a storm that came from the East Coast, came into a very hot environment. And unfortunately, the protocol to follow the heat illness stage was not followed. Next thing you know, it went south very fast. So not knowing the information is a huge problem. There's a gap in knowledge for sure, but also help people understand that their age, their gender, their poor fitness level, obesity, and then, their prior heat-related illness. Your hypothalamus in your brain is controlling the thermoregulation process in the body. And whenever you go through a episode, per se, your brain's like, whoa, I don't want that to happen again. And your tolerance lowers. So that's why when you ask somebody and they say, yeah, you know what? I haven't been the same since I had that heat exhaustion case. I've never been able to work the same at the same physical capacity or mental capacity as that day. And you can work yourself, build tolerance back up, but our bodies are an unbelievable thing. Yeah. And they will respond in a way to protect itself. And that's what happens when you go through prior heat-related illness. So just explaining these things and getting people to know the information is what we believe is the first step. Yeah. The second step is having a plan and expectations and procedures and making it actionable. Like Coach said, talk to the crew. What makes sense to them? What will work? What won't work? You need to be able to have that back and forth, because if it's just coming from leadership, there's a good chance it's not going to stick. So having a protocol or procedure to make it happen and actionable, and hydration logs, all that's great, that's fine, that's dandy, but we believe that it actually converts more if you just educate them on the importance of doing it, rather than having a little buzzer that's telling them to drink water, per se. So we just truly believe in the information giving first, and then the protocol we discussed, pre, intra, and post hydration. If you put those two together with proper training, we believe that your heat related and heat cognitive ability incidents are going to be drastically impacted.
Yeah. I 100%. I had heat stroke once. I'll tell a story quickly. It was like doing line work, but it was like privately. So I volunteered some time for a kids camp. They ordered a bunch of power poles, and I drove them, very rural, drove them 3 hours into a little lake in the woods, and I augured, dug all the holes. There was about 25 poles. I dug all the holes, set all the poles for them with the crane truck or the line truck, and took off. That day, I knew I only had that day to do it, right? So I was like 25 poles in one day, augering all by myself. Like I had a helper from the kids camp that was just holding a shovel for me basically. But it was like summertime, not crazy heat because it's Canada, whatever, 75, 80 degrees. But I knew all day long, I knew that I should be stopping more, but I didn't have the time. And it was like, I was young and I was just like, I need to get this done, I can't afford to take the time to stop. You get that when you're out on the job a lot too, is like, I can't afford the time to stop for this. I got pressures. I got people pushing me. So that's like part of that plan too, is like, no, you need to stop. Like, and you know when you should be stopping because like you said, if you're thirsty, it's too late. You know before that, and then you know when that time comes. Like, man, I had heat stroke that night on the drive home. I was driving a big Kenworth, and I just remember like head between my legs, puking on the floor. I eventually got a bucket. I kept driving, idiot, throwing up, but I'd never been so sick in my life by the time I got home. Like I was flat out for a week and a half from that. So like, it's serious. Like last year, guys, we lost 2-3 people just in Texas alone in the line trade to heat illness due to dehydration. Yeah. It's crazy. That's why we're bringing it up.
And the emergency response training, I forgot that piece.
Sure.
That's probably the third, maybe most important piece. Because as we talk about humans making mistakes, it's going to happen. We're all going to do it. We have to make sure that we build in the capacity or margin with the training, how to respond in an emergency. Because there's plenty of cases out there where somebody, as a result of heat, had passed that probably could have been prevented if the proper protocol was followed. Proper supervision, placing ice packs in certain areas or making sure to sip cool potable water, like certain things that are pretty basic, but are oftentimes not followed.
What are some of the criteria around like recognizing that something's going downhill, or just like when you're on that tipping point of like right before emergency, say, like when or maybe you don't realize this, but you've spent too much time in the heat, you're dehydrated. Like what's like a trigger that would say, hey, maybe I should drink some water, get in the shade, get cool, get like, I don't know.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I mean, to me, the first thing that comes to my mind is you start to feel tight in your head. Now, why is that? Goes back to the blood. Thick, capillary beds start to contract. The heart has to force blood through those small capillaries. Your head gets tight. And so that's the thing that jumps out at me, because I can tell with myself that's what happens. I'm sure there's others that Dylon is aware of, but that's a real indicator that something's not right.
Yeah, to piggyback off that is one thing that I've learned through other studies is that heat illness stages are not sequential. So even though we get taught about, first is the heat rash, and then heat syncope, and then this, and then that, and then rapid heartbeat, and then no sweat, it's not always like that. Sometimes it's the very first thing is boom, you're getting hit on the side of the head with, you're about to black out, or your heart rate's about to, put you into hypertension or whatever it may be, or cardiac arrest. It's not always stage by stage, which is why there's a massive gray area here that we need to make sure people know how to respond to every single level, because every individual has a different tolerance as well, and a different toughness or pain tolerance per se. And one of the first things that I would say is to go directly in line with what Koch said is the blacking out. Everybody knows that whenever you're starting to get very exhausted and you're dehydrated and you're working, and say you drop a tool or you move too quickly, and that quick little blacking out of, oh crap, okay, something's going on, that's probably a good indicator to say, hey, you know what, let's take 15, 20 minutes, because whatever could come, that what if question, whatever could happen after that, you may get away with it 99% of the time, but you may not. And you need to be able to have that ability to ask yourself and others, and it falls directly in line with having a buddy system. That's another one of our tools that we talk about, is I need to be able to check on you and you need to be able to check on me. If you're usually doing backflips out of the bucket truck, and then this morning, though, you woke up and you kind of stumbled out and maybe you tripped over the curb, and, it's like, damn, maybe Ryan stayed out too late last night, or, whatever it may be. I need to be able to be comfortable with saying, hey, you know what, let's take 20 minutes before we start. Let's chill out. Let's get ourselves recouped and make sure that we're fit for duty to perform the work at hand. But having a buddy system is extremely key, because if you don't have that, we this industry specifically, is a brotherhood, and you want to be paying attention to each other. And sometimes the animosity of the brotherhood sometimes, and the certain hazing of certain levels, that's all fine and dandy. In the world of athletics, it was the same way. Yeah. But there was a mutual level of respect that was, at the end of the day, I want you to go home safely.
Yeah.
And if that means me saying, hey, dude, let's take 20 minutes here and just chill out and recoup to make sure that we can perform safely. Extremely key. So
you've gotten to this point where you've recognized it. You're like, hey, I need 20 minutes, or you've been told to take 20 minutes. What's the top 2-3 things that you got to do in order to right yourself?
Yeah,
end up in the hospital.
Absolutely. Number one thing is going to be getting to a cool area. I wouldn't suggest jumping into a freezing cold cab, because there's some things physiologically that your body goes through that you wouldn't want to do that. So just getting to a shaded area, maybe with a nice breeze if it needs to be engineered, or if it's a natural breeze, whatever it may be. And then consuming water and electrolytes, but at a sipping pace. Not necessarily gulped, but, try to drink like we said, a bottle and a half, per hour, with some added electrolytes. And that can be different for everybody. We're in the business of electrolytes, obviously, but you may be a heavy salt sweater. I may not be. You may be a heavy magnesium, potassium sweater, and I may not be. So there's no golden rule to say, hey, you need this amount of this amount of that. There's another lemonade. There's a lemonade stand on every other corner in this space now. Tons of experts out there. We're not calling ourselves experts at all. We want you to do your own research. But everybody knows that you need electrolytes. Yeah. That you need them. So taking 15 to 20 minutes to get electrolytes, water, shade, and then obviously resting. Get in a seated position, hang out for a bit, and, know yourself, because nobody knows you like you know you. And if you feel like you're ready to go, then you can, get back to work.
I know this might seem like a crazy question, but maybe just like define what an electrolyte is. Because I think a lot of people just associate electrolytes with a brand, that they know, like a drink brand, like, oh, this has got electrolytes in it. No idea what an electrolyte is and what it does.
Well, the name actually came out of the sports drink world.
Yeah.
When they found out that through the process of what's called osmolality and osmolarity, that the body would receive fluids faster with some minerals in it than water alone. It speeds it up. It's called active transport. And that spawned, in fact, it came out of the research, also spawned Pedialyte, that kind of product.
Yep.
This is in the mid-'60s. So that whole world for childhood dehydration started the exact same time as sports hydration. It's not by accident. That's what the research showed. And all it really is salts. And, in the old days in athletics, they gave you what? Salt tablets. Yep. They didn't have Gatorade. But they'd give you salt tablets. So what you're really doing is replacing the salts in the form of sodium, potassium, and we make the case magnesium is a critical component of that, which most don't. And that's kind of our differentiator to say, listen, if you really want to utilize and absorb those salts and electrolytes into your system, you also need the magnesium to make that mechanism happen. And we incorporate some other things too, but those are the three preeminent ones. And so that's all it is. It's like when we were visiting earlier, Ryan. You can overthink this too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
This is a good segue into talking. If like you want to talk about this.
Yeah, the reason is because we had this on the third
Dehydration
section.
and cognitive decline is the slide that's up.
Yeah, so dehydration and cognitive decline. We've repositioned ourselves. We believe to be one of the first ones to really relate cognitive decline related injuries to dehydration. You hear the term mental fatigue a lot, physical fatigue a lot. Coming from the athletic performance space, a big portion of that is from your hydration level. But I'll get to the electrolytes question because you just brought it up, but studies show that at just 2% water loss, your brain's already slipping. That's why we say mental fatigue precedes physical fatigue. So if we look back at the average American worker that's chronically dehydrated, that means we are all performing work at a cognitively declined state most of the time.
Wow.
5% water loss, your musculoskeletal and nervous system begin to decline. So this is where that lack of attention to detail or slowered extremities. It's another big thing in this space. You have a slowered reaction time. It's split seconds.
It's massive.
Right? It's split seconds in this space that can cause somebody to go home or not. So you need to be in tune, right? Electrolytes act as conductors or connections. That's really why I brought up this slide with you asking that question, is they carry charges throughout the body, electrical charges throughout the body that allow the brain to make sound decisions, firing all these neurotransmitters in the brain, and then allow the musculoskeletal system to move. And if you have poor connection, either flooding of the system like hypernatremia we discussed, too much water flooding out the electric charges, we don't have proper connection, or with the lack of, or this just the sheer lack of electrolytes, you're misfiring as well. So just like the electrical system in your car, if you don't have that conductor, things aren't going to be firing the way they should, mentally or physically. So yeah, again, this is another just, people don't know these things.
No.
Mainly.
No.
They see, not to drop any names, but there's plenty of other competitors out there that are throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars in social media marketing and campaigns, and balanced electrolytes is not what they're focused on. They're focused on selling you a boatload of product. Yeah. At the end of the day, balanced electrolytes is really what you want, because it's too broad of a spectrum to say that everybody needs that much sodium or everybody needs that much potassium.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. And I don't honestly remember the name of the company, but we had a booth at a trade show, and I noticed that there was one other company, maybe two, in a huge convention center that was a hydration company. I went and looked at their product, 1,000 milligrams of potassium. I'm like, really? So I called because I wanted to know. I called our formulator, biochemist, genius. I said, Rich, tell me about 1,000 milligrams of potassium. He said, anybody with a heart condition could kill him. And that much of an imbalance, skewed to potassium rather than, like Dylon said, a balanced approach. Now, could that, if a singular person knew they had a potassium deficiency, that's one thing.
Sure.
But you're selling this to the general public. I don't know that company survived. I don't think I've seen them since, but I understand why.
Damn. That's wild. Just imagine same in the reverse, 1,000 milligrams of salt or it's a lot.
And there's the thing is though, there's a lot of studies about salt right now. If you're eating a super clean diet,
you should be adding salt.
You should be adding salt.
Yeah, I just recently heard that.
You know what I mean? You're eating say a green,
'Cause you're not
leafy,
getting
healthy
enough.
diet,
Yeah.
you're not eating a bunch of preservative food.
Yeah.
Preservatives are really built by salt.
Yeah.
And that's why convenience foods or even like trade specific gas station treats are loaded with salt.
Mm-hmm.
Salt's usually not the problem as it relates to hydration in the workplace. It's usually the lack of magnesium, potassium, and calcium, etc. You need to understand that some people do need 1,000 milligrams of sodium. If you're a bodybuilder or you're eating very healthy and sweating a lot, you probably need more than somebody that's maybe not as active or eating more preservative type foods. So that's why I always lean on, because you'll probably have somebody commenting on our podcast like, these dudes don't know what the hell they're talking about, salt this, salt that, which is fine. Some people need that, but not everybody's the same. And for the general population, Americans get way too much dang salt.
Again, it's like knowing yourself, educating yourself on these sorts of things, understanding how much salt you're consuming or not consuming, or whatever the thing is that you're consuming or not consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good segue into your hydration system. Hydrate and Recover, Energy and Focus, and your new base hydration. Talk about them. Talk about the differences between them and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, we've gotten here with our cornerstone product, which we've separated ourselves in this space as being performance hydration, a 4-pillar approach versus a singular pillar approach. And what that means is, how can we impact recovery? How can we impact healthy aging? How can we impact your hydration level and performance? And we can do that by a sound formulation and involving ingredients that competitors per se don't typically do. Coming from the world of athletics, the name of the game is recovery. Coach says it all the time. If you don't recover, then what are you? Because you're sure as heck not getting better if you're not recovering. So we brought that mindset to the industrial sector with our Hydrate and Recover. Talking about things like branched chain amino acids, which are building blocks of protein. People in the trades are using their muscles. Muscles are made up of protein, which are made up of BCAAs. So just giving them a source of BCAAs, which most of them aren't getting on a daily basis, we believe that we can impact their recovery, which will impact their performance and safety. Also along the lines of Hydrate and Recover is 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, things like CoQ10. So we're talking about brain health, heart health, immune system health, collagen support, just a plethora of ingredients that are going to address more than just dehydration and heat illness, which, like I said, we've done a phenomenal job making a large impact with a lot of companies with the Hydrate and Recover product.
And I might add, vitamin C, and we put 1,000 milligrams in every serving, helps build somewhat of a protective matrix around the cell, a buffering, if you will, that can withstand or offset and protect from cancer cells. So I don't make that as a medical claim. I'm just saying the research tells you that that's one of the benefits of a diet with vitamin C. So with our protocol, taking 2 servings a day, you're going to get 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. Yeah. So just as a side note, and something like glutathione, which is an amino acid that helps usher and remove toxins, flushes it from your system. So you recover faster. And I might at this time mention that aside from what we're discussing here with Hydrate and Recover, the number one modality in the world for recovery is sleep. And it's becoming more and more apparent that the brain will wash itself every night during the sleeping process. And we don't give it enough attention. For those that sleep well and don't have a problem, well, then they got it made. But a lot of us, I'm one of them. I can have trouble sleeping. So I have to really come up with a plan. So back to you.
Yeah. On that note, really just dove in a little more to that 4-pillar approach that Hydrate and Recover has been for going on 7 years now. It's the longest standing product for wilderness athlete, right?
Hands down.
You know, it was the inaugural product, really.
Well, I'm at a hunting show one time. It was like Pope and Young, and they bring in all these mounts from the year, the big animals that were killed that year. And there's this unbelievable taxidermy work of a moose being attacked by a grizzly bear, full mounts. I went, that's unbelievable. And I'm standing there looking at it from about 15 feet, and the guy standing next to me, it was his moose. And he looks at me and he saw my Wilderness Athlete shirt, and I introduced myself as the founder of the company. I thought he was going to kiss me. He said, Coach, I got this moose down in the middle of a swamp, and I am tanked. And I took your product, and it's just unbelievable what it did to help me. And, you know, I want to say that that's a little bit of hyperbole, but at the same time, when the body is really deficient in nutrients, the body runs on nutrients.
Yeah.
Water and nutrients.
Yeah.
And if you give it just water, even some electrolytes, but you're missing some nutrients, you're not going to get that kind of effect.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny that he just gave me a hug. And I thought it was a really funny story about the power of a really good product.
I love stories like that. It's also, I think, it's important to note too that all ingredients aren't made the same. Like you mentioned vitamin C, but this source wise, right?
Right.
So that's like something to pay attention to as well.
Oh,
right? This has got vitamin C in it, but what's the source?
Yeah, and you know the truth though is all you can do is try the product and what they're purporting that it will do, and if you don't feel it, then don't buy it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a squirrely world. And we all know this. Everybody's trying to get to your wallet, and making all kinds of claims.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And really, you can take supplements, and you could take 97 different supplements a day if you want. I love the fact that, you know, a handful of those you just pour in a glass of water, mix it up, and you can throw it down rather than 94 pills to swallow.
Yeah.
Like, that's difficult sometimes.
Well, and you brought up earlier just the word trust.
Yeah.
For example, like we have a really high potency multivitamin, and I trust our formulator. It's just everything about it. And to listen to him, to have him on when he connects dots about, you can have this, but if you don't have this, this affects that, which triggers this, which absorbs this. Otherwise, it's all for, those kind of conversations. Then it really does come down to trust. For example, people tell me sometimes, I took a multivitamin, and man, I felt so much better. Well, that's probably psychosomatic, because a vitamin is not part of the energy cycle. It's going to give you gaps in your nutritional diet. But if you're telling me that you took this vitamin, all of a sudden you felt like $1 million, I got to call you on that one in your head. And if that's the case, I got no problem with that. Yeah. If you think it's a placebo, well, go for it. But the reality of it is it didn't. Mm-hmm. So I'm big on the word trust, and you've got to find somebody, and then you can make the leap that, well, gee, I trusted these guys with H&R, Hydrate and Recover, and it was amazing. I bet this is probably pretty good too. So we want to build our company around people who take our products, trust us, and know that we're not going to steer them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the kind of perfect segue into, our Hydrate and Recover, as we mentioned, that's our cornerstone, because you can address so many things. I like to explain it as the base hydration is the screwdriver. The Hydrate and Recover is the Swiss Army knife or multi-tool. Both of them have the screwdriver. Hydrate and Recover has a bunch of other things it can do for you from a nutritional angle. Base hydration, we just launched it 4 weeks ago now. It is your sports drink style electrolyte replacement product. We had some competitors out there that, quite frankly, at the end of the day, Hydrate and Recover is a premium product that comes with a more premium price, because you're getting so much more out of it. But not everybody's a premium performance hydration customer.
Yeah.
And we're in a business here, so we needed to find a way to make an impact on a larger scale with the more, I guess you could say, budget sensitive customer, or whatever it may be, right? We needed something where if they were going to reach for these other ones, why don't we give them a better option of the other one?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not apples to apples with Hydrate and Recover to the other competitors. It's apples to oranges. Yeah. So we wanted to give them an apples to
kind
apples.
of don't let the perfect destroy the good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. So it's and I'll let Dylan elaborate on it. It's still a high quality product. I mean, we don't use artificial dyes and those colorings that you're going to get. And I laugh at some of the top companies that I've seen and we compete against. Not that I wish them any ill will, but you pour the contents out into the palm of your hand and it's like fairy dust. There's really nothing in it. And so we came up with that. And we're in a kind of a transition year. And like Dylon said, now we have a really solid product and then a premium product.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's more of a system approach. We have a multi-level system approach now. Even up to our rescue hydration, which we don't have with us right now, but our rescue hydration is just a really even more hyper-focused emergency. I mean, hence the name, but it's to get you out of the woods quick. So we really do have your baseline, your performance hydration line, and then we have your oh no moment line. And then on that note, we have the energy and focus. And 90% of the time we go talk about hydration with a company, the first thing they ask is, hey, what is that energy product? Because the world runs on energy.
Yeah.
Coffee is the most consumed beverage of the world. We need it, but we need to understand the sources we're getting it from. And quite frankly, there's a lot of sources out there that are not very clean. There's not a lot of research behind them. A big marketing play, a lot of fraud in that space. And, we're not going to name any names at all. But at the end of the day, do your own research on what the source is coming from and try and do your best to look at the ingredients, because we want you to look at our ingredients. Energy and focus. I like to use the terminology that a fatigued employee is a dangerous employee, but a overstimulated employee is just as dangerous. Why is that? Because you have your high highs and your low lows. If you're overstimulating your body daily, and let's not even mention what we're doing to our kidneys and our liver and our natural adrenaline production, but what are we doing for the safety of our workforce, with that on this roller coaster of emotions? That's a can of worms that, you could open up and really dive into if you wanted to. But that's why we came up with energy and focus, is because focus leads to safety. We need it, but we want to give you a natural source of caffeine. And we also want to give you the natural B6s and B12s and, obviously some other added components in there, but we want to give you something that's not going to wig you out. It's going to turn the lights on upstairs for you, focus you in for more of a sustainable, even keeled energy.
If I could add to that real quickly, that most, I bet your audience doesn't know this, most energy drinks that you get out of a convenience store, whether it's in the little bottle or the big can or whatever, I don't need to mention names, they work by stimulating your adrenal glands and causing your adrenal glands to release. And that's what gives you that burst. Well, I used to coach guys that would come walking in with 2 16-ounces, drink them both, and they'd have no effect on them because they had basically burnt out their adrenal glands. And if you go to any naturopathic doctor in this country, they will tell you the number one problem they see is adrenal fatigue from energy drinks. Now, contrast that, again, because of our formulators and their love for good science, our energy and focus product works naturally with the energy physiology of the human body to not overstimulate it, but just to work with it and give you a much more natural, comfortable mental boost without causing the adrenal glands to be overexpressed. I hope that makes sense.
Total sense.
And in fact, I might add that, and this goes back almost from the inception of the company, wildland firefighters started mixing 1 serving of our Hydrate and Recover to 1 serving of our Energy and Focus. and they started calling it Superman. And we have been known for that particular combination. They're standalone products, but together they're nutritional, and they leave you feeling really good. And so that's just a little explanation on how a healthy version of an energy drink works versus an unhealthy version.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I mentioned that to people too. I'm like, hey, just make sure you know that like you can take the blue one and the red one and mix them together. They're like, really?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. They call it a Superman. It's like, and they're like, I got to try that.
Yeah.
Because that, like, I love how you have an option for each, thing that you want, whether you just need the hydration or you want a little boost of energy, because that's a big deal. Because I know guys in the industry love their Monsters and their red, like whatever it is, they love them.
Yep.
They drink them all the time. And the nice big tall boys. I had a guy I worked with, call him, his nickname was Cookie, and his last name was Cook. And he would show up in the morning, and morning safety meeting, 7 a.m. on site, a tall, regular Monster, not the sugar-free ones, like the green ones. And I'm like, dude, that stinks. Like, what are you drinking that for? He's like, I need something to wash down the pot of coffee. And I'm like, yo, dude, like, you're going to have a jammer. 3 weeks after I left that job, Cookie had a heart attack.
Really?
And he didn't die. He's still alive today, I think.
Yeah.
As far as you know.
I think he's changed his habits, maybe. I don't know. He's a good old boy. But that's it right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's it in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, I was speaking at the NRECA event last week or 2 weeks ago. I mean, these are linemen walking up to our booth, safety professionals, leaders, supervisors, foremen, and like I said, most of the time they're coming to us because of the hydration need, and then the energy and focus component, as I mentioned, is like, well, we have a massive problem with energy drinks on our jobs. There's so much more research coming out about the dangers of them. And we are not going to get lost in the weeds in that. Yeah. But, the same idea as to why, International Lineman Rodeo, we're the most popular booth there. Why? Because I think everybody's probably still hammered from the night before, and we offer a pretty dang good hangover cure. Yeah. But at the end of the day, those are long days. And having the ability to get something clean and sustainable that's, oh, by the way, going to hydrate you and give you muscle recovery and mental recovery at the same time, it's a really good tool for this space. Yeah. So, I mean, some of you listeners, too, we'll be speaking at the International Lineman Rodeo coming up this year for the safety conference. And then we're always set up as the hydration sponsor there for the outdoor competition. So, yeah, it'll be exciting people are learning more and more about these type of topics, and what a platform to be able to do it. For one, I mean, this is fantastic to be able to get this stuff out to people, because there's a need for it. If this is safety, this is performance, and most importantly, it's quality of life. Don't you want to feel good?
I love that you guys lead with that. That's what really, like, right from the beginning, that's what's drawn me to your guys' business and products, was like that you lead with education and awareness on all these other things, and just generally try to help people live better lives.
Yeah.
Like, not just at work, but like at home too. Like, don't you want to show up at home, like in the same state you left in the morning? Like, good, aware, be able to play with your kids, do things later. Yeah.
Well, and I think
alive.
I think it stems from, most companies, and this is not to besmirch them whatsoever, because they hire people who, haven't had performance backgrounds. Dylon and I, an older man like me, I mean, I've been looking at the faces of young men for 40 years, and thousands of them. So, and I know Dylon has that kind of experience in the corporate setting too. So when you've done that much, I've probably forgotten more than a lot of people will ever know. Just
facts.
Just because of what I've done.
Yeah.
And then we'll be honest with somebody, if there's a question you have that I can't answer, ask me. I will go get you the answer. Not to try to be all things to all people, because I think then you risk becoming a liar.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you need to know that I don't know, I will not lie to you we'll figure it out. I'll go ask the right people, and we'll get you an answer.
That made me think of rescue hydration. Go back to that one for a sec. Is that something that you'd recommend in like that moment where you got that 20 minutes to sit down, you're recognizing that how does it work? And like, I think you need to pair it with hydrate and recover, right? Like how does that product work?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's designed to be paired with a hydrate and recover or a base hydration product just to get the added electrolytes.
Gotcha.
100% that 15, 20 minute check-in with yourself, if you're already behind the 8-ball, it can be used proactively as well. It doesn't need to be the heat exhaustion stage of, oh crap, before this turns into an emergency, like with an ambulance. It can happen at the beginning of the shift too. You know, if you're being real with yourself and saying, hey, you know what, I just need a little bit of added bonus or added boost. Absolutely. It can be used proactively as well. I mean, there's some, the added ingredients in there. There's astaxanthin in there, some aloe vera gel powder in there, coconut powder. It's just a really hyper-focused, higher level replacement that's going to allow, the astaxanthin actually allows your stomach lining to relax. That essentially, because you're going through those stages of heat illness, your body wants to regurgitate everything.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Right? Yeah.
So you need to be able to relax that inflammation a little bit in the stomach and allow it to absorb the hydration benefits.
That makes sense. Like I know, like when I've gone for a hike or something and you start to feel like dehydrated and hot, and like you take a big drink of water, you do feel tight in the stomach. Yeah. Right away. It's like, you almost feel like you want to throw up.
That goes back to the sipping versus chugging too. But yeah, absolutely. Just allowing the stomach to relax a little bit so it can pull in the added benefits is extremely key. So yeah, rescue hydration, absolutely. It's a tool that, I mean, we've heard amazing case studies already. We've had it out for a couple of years. I mean, we've had some customers legitimately call us up and say, hey, you probably saved somebody's life on the job today. And you know, that's what wakes us up in the morning. So it's a fantastic line. I didn't bring any with me, dang it, but that's all right.
It's all good. Yeah. I got a couple more kind of closing questions. They're off the direct hydration topic, so I wanted to save them till last, but I'm curious, like I asked this question to everybody on the show more recently. What does a good leader look like to you? I'm curious to ask you this question because of your experience with leadership, coaching, all of that. What does a good leader look like to you?
Boy, off the top of my head, willing to take the arrows. You know, it's not a popular position. Sometimes it's confrontational, and I'm not a guy who cherishes confrontation, but that comes with the territory. But leading by example, and to what I just said a minute ago, if you don't have the answer, don't pretend you do. Because it's okay to not be the expert in the room. Yeah. If I don't know, there's nothing wrong with that, but I will find out. That's, you know, and leadership comes in a lot of different forms. Some people are a little more hard charging. And the funny thing about a good leader, though, I think the reality of it is, good leaders are generally liked. And that without going into that, you know, the whole respect thing, but good leaders are generally liked and respected, you know. So I don't know if I answered your question.
All that. Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, probably the last time you asked me this question, I think was on the podcast, but one of the slogans I like to live by too, because my high school football coach talked about it. One of the first things he talked about was caring before you critique. And especially in the trades, it's very easy to use your seniority and the hat that you wear or the level that you're at to not care before you critique. It is very, very simple for you to be the yelling out the window safety guy or the foreman that is chewing somebody's ass. There's nothing wrong with chewing ass, 100%. You should be doing that, but make sure you go back over there and you say, hey, this is why you got your ass chewed. Like,
Sure.
this is why this is important. The ones that don't do that is, that's where there's a gap in leadership culture. So I would say caring before you critique, because if you show them that you care before you actually do critique them, they will listen to what you're telling them. But if you don't, it's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Love that. This trade is notoriously hard on mental health. I'm sure you've got a lot of experience seeing that and working through it yourself in athletics. Any advice on like working through mental health issues?
Boy, that is a challenge. I think it's a mindset, and we in this country have created a victim mentality. Like everybody's a victim.
Yeah.
I don't see that so much in the trades, and boy, that's another reason why I love your audience. And because hardworking people tend not to be victims. It's people that don't work.
Don't have time for it.
I always love that, and this is kind of a paraphrasing of a quote by George Bernard Shaw. He said, "True joy in life is this, to be a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish clot of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy."
I love that.
And I always love that. I love that for myself, because I don't want to be in a pity party. I don't want that. And to me, that's the reason I bring that up, is that's where people have mental problems. When they become a victim and they can't get their eyes off their self. And when I do, there are so many things in my life that I've been blessed with, friends, family. For me to have a pity party, I need to be struck by lightning. And I would make the case that 99% of Americans try to live like you do here in another country.
Yeah.
I just came back from Mexico City yesterday. Go complain to those people, So again, I can be long-winded on that, so I don't know if I answered your question, but
100%.
Yeah.
Dylon?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, going to safety conference after safety conference, mental health and awareness is something that's talked about probably predominantly, especially right now. We think that things like recovery, if you want to talk about,
Sure.
if you want to talk about like how to make change, identifying that there's a problem or whatever it may be, we just believe that a lot of it is just the body lacking what it needs, to allow yourself to get into these states of mind. Whether that's lack of sleep, because you're pouring yourself with crap in your body, and then you're flooding your brain with social media and all this crap and noise out in this world. I mean, the world's against us right now. And at the end of the day, they don't want you to be healthy. They want you to be overstimulated and stuck in this matrix because you're more easily controlled. But at the end of the day, what you put into your body affects what goes on up here. And what you put in your body affects your sleep cycle. And your sleep cycle affects how you think and your mental health and all those things. So, sleep is the number one modality to recovery, as we mentioned. And if we're in an industry or trade that it's already demanded, like you expect to get your work done and get it done right. And then you're usually doing it on low fuel. And then you're usually like, gosh, that sucked. I need to go have some drinks. And then you're going to do that again and again and again and again. It's a cyclical cycle. And again, we're not here to change the direction of any culture or ship. We just want to make sure that people know. If we really want to open up the hood on mental health, how about we look at these things?
Yeah.
Cultural standards, at the end of the day, that's what's going to impact mental health. Having check-ins and all these things, that's 100%. You need to do that. Call people, whatever it may be, check in with people. Yes. But we're talking about root causes. And really, we believe that that's through movement, working out, trying to eat better, trying to sleep better, putting things in your body that your body's starving for.
Well, not to interrupt your train of thought there, but I was laughing. I heard this statistic the other day, and it had to do with, you go down the road of your most dominant thoughts. You know, and people today are on this negative train. And there was a book written, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 years ago, As a Man Thinketh. A tiny little book, if you ever read it.
No, I haven't.
It's a wonderful little book.
Yeah.
You can read the whole thing in 20 minutes. But it just is the power of what your brain does. Now, you don't have to get into the power of positive thinking and that whole thing, but there is no question that if you focus on negative stuff, your life is going to be negative. Why do I say any of this? Find positive people to be with. I've had to, and I've been guilty recently with this whole political climate of going down that rabbit hole. And I had to get out because I found I didn't like myself. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Hang around positive people.
Love that. Love that. I like your guys' opinions on this because it's different than I've heard. Like I said, I asked this to everybody, and it's different. Your approach to this answer to these questions has been different than anything I've heard so far. And I think you're 100% right. I've been wearing this Whoop wearable device for the last 3-4 months, and I'm down almost 20 pounds. I'm sleeping better. And people ask, well, what major change? Why are you wearing it? What major change have you made out of it? And I said, I'm not making one major change. I'm seeing the results in real time of poor sleep, poor recovery, all of these things. And I'm making micro adjustments based off of like just what I'm seeing because it's in front of my face. I'm just checking in. Like, and I don't have to make a big change. I started like not eating like an asshole. I only eat up to 75-80% full, and then I just leave the food because, you know, in my family, you eat what was on your plate, you know. But you come to Texas, eating what's on your plate is a 22-ounce steak and extras and extras. Like, you can't eat all that food. And I'm 43. Like, I can't, like, it's different now. It's different now, as you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, I love that approach because it is 100%. Like, you start making these micro adjustments, but you got to start thinking about those. So like, I encourage everyone to like get some sort of wearable or something that can keep you accountable, or however your system is for doing that. It will make a difference because, like you said, once you start thinking these things, like it's on my brain now all day. Like, oh, I should be not eating that, or I should be drinking, or I should be hydrating. It's like, it's something that's there, and I'm making micro adjustments with big results, like big results.
Well, momentum's contagious too. I mean, from the sports world to like your internal mindset. Like, you get a small win, all of a sudden it gets infectious with yourself. I mean, whether that's your fitness level or maybe helping out in the community or whatever it may be, like, it's infectious. And that, back to Coach's point, has a lot to do with who you surround yourself with too. I mean, if people are constantly dragging you into bull crap, probably should get out of that circle.
Yeah, hell yeah. Cool, guys. Well, anything else you want to say before we kick out of here?
Well, no, I would just say that we'll, first of all, I appreciate you having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, anytime, I want to be genuine about it, that we do really love educating people. Like you said, that's what attracted you to us. But we're not perfect, and we just want to keep getting better as a company, and just get in front of more people, and hopefully we can make a difference in a lot of folks' lives.
That's why I love having you guys on prior to summer too. Like, I really think that that's important because it's heat season in most of the states, most of the country, and it's good to be good for people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, thank you.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
Bye, everybody. I hope you guys got some value out of that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to draw your awareness to a couple of other things. So we make these podcasts, yes, but it's not the only thing that we put out as far as content. Our social medias are full of valuable cuts from the podcast itself, as well as just a bunch of other educational stuff and entertainment. So go follow us at Powerline Podcast on all social media platforms. And then also YouTube. I don't think that a lot of you are aware of this, But we don't just load these podcasts onto YouTube. We also make vlogs, which are super educational, entertaining, great place to direct people to learn about the industry, learn about the trade, or just learn about what's going on within either Quanta or the Powerline industry in general. So hit up our YouTube channel. Again, it's at Powerline Podcast. You can catch those vlogs on there. We also load a bunch of other extra content in video form. We try to up the quality every time we do this. We try to up that quality. So hit up the YouTube channel and make sure you're subbed to all those platforms. Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon. We'll see you again soon. Peace.